Welcome to the Value Stuff Podcast. I am your host, Dan Glazier. I am a personal property appraiser and I value stuff for a living. Thank you so much for listening. Today, I want to talk about getting an appraisal for an estate when you are an executor. And I'm talking about getting the household contents appraised. I've been a certified appraiser now for over 24 years. I've completed probably about 1,000 or more appraisals and appraisal report, and 50% to 70% have been dealing with estates. So 500 to 700 appraisal reports dealing with estates. So as a certified appraiser for 24 years, I have come to the conclusion 100% of the time, if you are dealing with an estate and you're an executor, you need to get the contents appraised 100% of the time. It will save you so much time, grief, and energy down the road. Got a call last week from a lawyer, and this is one of the reasons why I decided to do this podcast. It's been in the back of my mind for a while, but I decided to do it now is because he called me and said, Dan, I have an appraisal for you. It's an estate. The family's not getting along. The beneficiaries are not getting along. And it's been going on for over 2 years. And they didn't get an appraisal done when it was suggested in the first place. So that would have been the executor not getting an appraisal. He said, I don't know why. He goes, I always suggest to my clients, get an appraisal done. It's one of the first things you should do. Get an appraisal of the contents. And he said, I'm going to stop being passive with this. He said, you're going to be very busy, because he says, I am going to insist. And he said, I'm not going to be passive with this. I'm going to insist that if the executor go get the contents of the household appraised. That got me thinking. And we had a discussion. We talked for half an hour, and we talked how most of the arguing and fighting and, the chaos is caused by, it's not the house, it's not the investments, it's not, a couple of vehicles. That stuff's fairly easy to get values on and get appraised and deal with. But he said, people argue about the stuff in the household. It's understandable when you're dealing with an estate and you're an executor. It's not just the executor, everybody that you're dealing with, the beneficiary stuff, they're usually grieving. They're usually emotional. Often they've been brought together where they haven't talked sometimes in months or years, and now they're having to communicate and get along. And as the executor, you're the one that's in the middle of all this, but they argue about the stuff in the house. And sometimes there's a lot of value, but sometimes there's not a lot of value. But if you get an appraisal done, which you're supposed to, you get an appraisal done, you have values. So it doesn't matter what opinions people have. It doesn't matter what emotions people have. We're taking some of the emotions and we're taking these opinions of value away from them, because the appraiser is going to come up with fair market values of what the items are worth. So let me get into the 4 reasons why you must 100% of the times get an appraisal of the household contents when you are dealing with an estate. So number one, you're doing your due diligence. And, you hear that word a lot, due diligence, but really what due diligence is, it's your legal obligations. Depending on your province, your state, your country, a lot of times you're supposed to get it done. And what do I mean by supposed to get it done? When you're the executor, you're going to have to list the assets and the value of the assets for the estate. And again, you got the house, you got the vehicles, you got investments. That stuff's fairly easy. But there's another part that says other assets. And the other assets, that's the contents in the house. Furniture, maybe there's RVs, maybe there's the jewelry, the artwork. That's the other assets. And we're mostly talking about household contents. And a lot of times people skip this. So they're not doing their due diligence. They skip it and they guess. They put a number, they just write in a number. Well, if you just write in a number, you're opening yourself up. People are going to challenge that. The estate might end up in litigation or mediation, and we don't want that. Or that you can't figure, people are trying to argue about dividing it up, but you don't have values on it. When you get an appraisal report, you're going to have a report. It's going to list the value of all the main items. It's going to list the items as anything that's mentioned in the will. And it's going to save so much time and energy. But basically, it's your due diligence. So number one is the due diligence. You're going to be required to put the value on those assets, and you're not guessing. You're getting a professional opinion from a certified appraiser, so you will know the values. That's number one. Number two, you want to protect yourself and the estate. I've seen this so many times where I've been called in to do an appraisal and they didn't do this in the beginning. It's one of your first responsibilities and duties is to, list those values. But, they just kind of got, they did it months later. I go to the house and they're like, that painting's missing, that statue missing. There was jewelry here. Things are missing. And sometimes it's innocent because people think, Granny told me that I could have that, or my uncle said that was mine. My dad said that was mine and stuff like that. But maybe it wasn't listed in the will, but people might not have malice intentions, but it's missing. And now you're on the hook for it because people are coming at you saying, that painting that's missing was worth $10,000. And you don't know if it's worth $10,000. You don't know if it was worth $10. But if you go and get an appraisal, there's going to be photographs. There's going to be an inventory of it. You're going to know if anything goes missing, you're protecting yourself and you're protecting the estate. You're protecting the assets of the estate by getting the appraisal done. So that's number two, protecting yourself and protecting the estate. That leads me on to number three, which these are kind of hand in glove too. All of these are sort of hand in glove. You get an appraisal report done and you get the appraisal. You're going to know the real values of stuff. You hear me say this a lot. When you're an executor, co-executor, it's like all this noise and everyone's coming at you saying, this is worth this is worth that, this was promised me, that's promised me that, right? And you're kind of going in blind because you don't know the values. Maybe part of maybe in the will it said you're going to distribute the stuff evenly. How are you going to distribute the stuff evenly if you don't know the values of it? You're just guessing the values. So you're going to know the values, and that's just going to take so much stress off you. All these opinions that are coming at you, all of a sudden a lot of the noise goes away. When you're an executor, you got to have myopia. You've got to just be tunnel vision because you got a lot to do in a short amount of time. You have a lot of responsibilities, and people are going to say their words. People are going to have opinions. That's fine. But really, the opinion that matters when it comes to the value is the opinion, that professional opinion that a professional certified appraiser gave you in that report. It's going to make things a lot easier. And you can also, when you know what the true values are, you can secure, that goes again to protecting the estate. You can now, secure the assets. And what do I mean by secure the assets? Let's say there's some jewelry that's valuable. Let's say there's some sterling silver that's valuable, some artwork that's valuable, maybe some other collectibles that value. You now know which items are valuable, and you might want to take them off premises, or you might want to, there might be a safe you need to put them in, or you're just securing them. You'll have to figure that out as the executor. But now you know which items are more valuable, and you can decide what to do with them. You don't want the items to go missing. It's funny how some people will come into the household and pretend that was promised to me and can I just take it? And no, it's not really valuable, but it is valuable. They know it's valuable. So you're protecting yourself because you know the value. So that's number two and number three sort of combined together, but that's very important. You're going to know the value so you can remove anything that has any significant value and secure the items, secure the assets of the thing. So number four, and after you get the appraisal report, the noise is going to start. There's going to be less noise and opinions because you know what the values are. You can secure the items. You can now start. Number four is you can start making a plan. And what do I mean start making a plan is like, it's a lot of work. Most of the work when you're dealing with an estate is dealing with the people, but it's also, what do we do with all these items in a household? It's like I was said earlier in this podcast here, I said that, you have a house, you have a few vehicles, you have investments. That stuff's fairly straightforward and easy to deal with. But what are we going to do with the hundreds of items in the house, the thousands of items in the house, right? So Because you'll now know what has value and what doesn't have value, you can start making a plan. And this is what I mean by the plan. You can, maybe you're going to sell some of the items. You know what you can sell and what you can sell it for, how you can sell it. If you're going to donate the items, what items you can donate and what they're worth. So maybe you can get a tax receipt for some of those donations. Maybe you're going to have to distribute the items. Now you can be fair with to distribute the items. What items you could throw out, because a lot of times, especially older people, they get hoarding in their senior years, a lot of hoarding going on, especially if it's people that had lived through the depression or didn't have a lot of money and they accumulated a lot. They tend to not throw anything out, but you now know what stuff has value, what stuff doesn't have values, because there's always that fear, especially people watch the Antiques Roadshow or watch Storage Wars, that, oh, I threw all those comics out, they're worth a fortune, or I threw those records out, or, oh, I threw those video games out, they're worth a fortune. But you're not guessing. You hear me saying this as an executor, you're not guessing. You've got a professional opinion of the value from a certified appraiser, and you'll know what you can throw out. Maybe you won't want to stage the house. Maybe you're going to sell the house and you need to stage it. So you do need to sell some of the stuff, donate some of the stuff. What items have value, what you can keep, sell, et cetera, recycle, all that stuff. Just some advice here, before you start selling the items, before you start giving away the items, before you start distributing the items to the beneficiaries, get directions from your wills and estate lawyer. I'm an appraiser, and I'm just going by what I see, and I understand the personal property and what has value. I've seen this too, where people start giving things away or distributing things, and you haven't got the okay from the lawyer yet. And then again, this prolongs the process of clearing the estate. And that's what I mean by clearing the estate, is you get the go ahead from the government that you can now start selling and distributing the assets. That's, I'll give just some other advice. When you're dealing with the house, get it appraised by a real estate appraiser. We all have friends that are real estate agents, and they're usually really good. They usually understand the market. They know what we can sell it for, but there might be a little bit biased because you want to do arm's length. So you're better to get a professional certified appraiser, real estate appraiser. I'm a different type of appraiser, a personal property appraiser, but get a real estate appraiser to appraise the house. That's just some advice. That's just advice from me. And again, always refer back to the wills and estate lawyer. People always ask me, they're asking advice. I can give my advice, but I always say, make sure you talk to the lawyer first. So that's what I have for you today. I hope it helps. There's a lot of stress that happens when you got to deal with the stuff in the house, the personal property, and hopefully this helps out. If you want to just save yourself so much hassle, you want a lot of the noise to go away, just make sure you get this appraisal done. Again, 100% of the time, get a professional certified personal property appraiser to appraise the stuff in the house. Thank you so much. Please share and subscribe so we can grow this. Have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for listening. Take care.